Welcome to the Pinnacle Take podcast with renowned recruiter and podcast host, Benjamin Mena. Get ready to take a ride with this dynamic network of professionals and seize the coveted chance for personal and professional growth.
I am so excited about this episode because getting a chance to have some of the elite, some of the best recruiters on the podcast, and having them share exactly what they're doing so that way you can take something from them, take a tool, take a tip, put it onto your desk. But what's awesome is the recruiters that are elite, but have been elite for year after year, are doing something right. And here's the thing. This guest did not have a college degree. So he realized that he had to outwork everybody else in the room. And the funny thing is, he probably makes more than most people now that have a college degree. But that's the capability, that's the possibility of recruiting. So David, I am so excited to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here on the podcast. I'm super excited about this time we're going to get to spend together and really talk about recruiting and how I've built a business over a 30-year span and what keeps me in the game, what knocks me out of the game at times, and how to stay persistent and keep your head down and working.
David, real quick, a quick 30-second self-introduction.
All right. I'm David Fishman. I'm with Sparrow Company. We're an executive search and staffing company headquartered out of El Paso, Texas. I actually have a house in LA, Orange County area, but I regularly come here to our corporate office. And where I really like to be here most of the time when I'm working, because I'm in an office environment and it means a lot to me. I've been in the business for 30 years, started on a temporary desk, moved to an executive search desk when I was younger in my career, and now I'm back with a temporary business here in the El Paso region.
Well, that's exciting. So real quick, you do not have a college degree. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I do not have a college degree. We joke around a lot because my twin brother is a professor in New York City and has multiple degrees. He went the degree route. I didn't go that route. I went the military route. I was in the Coast Guard for 8 years before I started recruiting. But I quickly learned as a person without a degree that I probably had to work harder at times or even be accepted with certain other companies when I was younger. If I, without that degree, I wouldn't have been able to get an opportunity. So what I had to do, I had to build my own business, work hard, keep my head down, and outperform.
Did you ever feel that not having a degree gave you a disadvantage, or at least in the early days, a disadvantage in recruiting?
Absolutely, I did. And maybe that was my own chip on my shoulder. You understand? Maybe I'm working in a field that is filled with college degrees. Almost everybody we recruit on our executive search side of the business, obviously will have a college degree. Majority, not always. Okay. And when I was younger, when I first started Sparrow Company, I was still flirting the idea with working with maybe a national firm. And I would go to apply at that point, and they're like, hey, no college degree required, whatever it might be. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think it helped me keep at it. Okay. And I think now college degrees are less important, but there was a time in the early 2000s where majority of our customers and other recruiting firms were filled with people with university degrees, college degrees.
When in your career journey in recruiting, did you realize that you actually felt like you had to outwork everybody because of feeling like you were disadvantaged from not having a degree?
When I first started in the business, I was in a temporary desk. Majority of the people do not have college degrees in the temporary field. A lot. They do and they don't. There's a really good mix. In fact, in our business right now, I try to hire people without degrees and people with degrees. And I think it's a great mix to get some people. I mean, a degree is a very important thing, obviously. Okay. And I'm not one to say that it's not important. It is important. But then I look at my children. Some have degrees, some don't have degrees. And I think it really adds to to a better team environment when you have people from different backgrounds and different things that drive them and those type of things.
For you personally, did that help drive your competitiveness?
Absolutely, it did. I don't think there was a a day or a week that goes by up until about 2014 where I really felt like I was not on the same playing field. Even though my numbers were there, okay, I always still had that chip on my shoulder of like, well, I don't have a degree. They have degrees. And even when I first got into Pinnacle Society back in 2008, 2009, I would sit in a room with highly educated people, probably a majority with degrees, and maybe a few that didn't have it. But I felt like my upbringing in this business was highly driven due to that one certain fact. Like I said, 2014 is probably when I said, I don't want to say I don't care about it, but I started realizing that I really wouldn't need that under my name or on a resume. Started Sparrow in 2009. By 2014, the recession was finally lifting, this 2008 to 2012. And I could start feeling this 2014 that it was more about my team, myself and my team, than it was about a degree from a university.
The reason why I want to start with that is because I had somebody just last week asking me some questions, asking for my opinion because they did not have a degree.
Okay.
And I know you've been in Pinnacle for a while, and this is a business that if you put in the work, you follow a protocol, follow a path, so much can happen with your life. But anyways, let's take a few steps back. Let's rewind. How did you even end up in this land of misfit toys recruiting?
Well, it was an interesting story. I was in the Coast Guard for about 8 years. I had an injury in the military, which forced me out. I then went into selling industrial batteries in downtown Los Angeles. And it was a crazy business of having to walk into industrial operations in downtown and try to talk to the maintenance manager about if they needed electric batteries for their forklifts, whatever. That year, I was the top salesman. I think I made $50,000 my first year out of the Coast Guard. And that was 99, 98, 99, though, around that time. So I was highly driven. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I decided to jump into the business. I was lucky enough to have a couple family members who were in the business. And some people say, okay, wow, he had family members in the business. That means everything was probably given to him. That was not the case with our family. Okay, so I had a dream about living in Los Angeles, and I was going to work in recruiting. And oddly enough, I started a company called Pinnacle Employment Group. Okay, and it's just so odd that later on, Pinnacle Society was in my cards. And not a lot of people know this story, but I failed. I mean, I went and started this business, and my mother, who was in the staffing business, who had gotten out of it because it's a long story, but I won't get into it. She came down, negotiated a rental agreement with a gentleman who saw some fire in me and said, hey, I'll give you a run at this, And it was right in Beverly Hills, okay, area. And I was living in West Los Angeles. I was working hard, but unfortunately, I was probably going out too much of that time as well. Okay, and it was pretty hard to sustain that lifestyle. After that, my older brother had a business up in the high desert of California, and I've told this story a couple times. It's funny. He said, hey, I might have a spot for you here at my business. That was at the time of where you could still like do competition for business or for employees. So I go up there to start, and it turns out he has 14 candidates who were going to go through a 2-week boot camp, and the consultant was going to help choose who was going to make it and who wasn't. Okay. It was like Survivor or something like that. And so I had to excel in that. And I was one of two chosen to I'm like, wait a second, I came back to the desert and now I have to go through this competition. I still remember the lady. It was really interesting, but I then got a job as a temporary sales account manager for for a very large business he was running. He's still in the business, by the way, and he does very well. He still has that same business, and he does a combination of search and staffing as well. But it was, oddly enough, 6 months after joining him, he sold the business. He rejoined the business later on. So now I'm getting through an acquisition, which led me to a very large national temporary company in California, where I worked for a few years before rejoining my brother in business in 2001.
So I got to ask, when did you make the decision to like, hey, I'm going to go do this on my own? What spurred that?
I was naive, probably when I the Los Angeles venture. I was probably naive. I think that in recruiting, you have to dream almost every single day. Like, I literally still wake up and dream about closing a big deal, or I dream about this or dream about that. I have a very vivid imagination, so that helps me get through any day. And I talk about recruiting through imagination and believing you're the best jockey. Believe in you. If I watch the Super Bowl, I'm usually watching the sports, imagining like recruiting. And I talk about recruiting. I talk about, if you want to get 100,000, you need those Hail Mary passes. You need a $30,000 deal. You need a $20,000. But those $6,000, when you're at 94 or 95,000 for the month and you score a $7,000 deal, you just made it, correct? And so I think imagination helped me get started in this, and being naive as well. And then I thoroughly loved this business every day. So when I first started in a temp business, I really loved what I did. I still, to this day, I love what I do. Yeah, I have bad days, and my team goes, oh, he's grumpy today. I'm 58 now, or I'll be 59 this year, So I probably a little more grumpier than used to, but overall, I like what I do. I love what I do. And I think the byproduct of recruiting is helping people, correct? But really, I look at more as we're not helping people, we're assisting our client find the best talent.
You just mentioned something that I think is super important. Every day you dream.
Absolutely.
Every day that you dream, how do you keep up that dream alive? And also, how do you make sure that it's also being transitioned into actual work, so you're just not dreaming your life away?
Good question. Because you could lay in bed all day and dream, correct? I think serving in the Coast Guard, the U.S. Coast Guard, when I was younger, really, really got me on a track of I have to perform, okay? I always have to perform. And coming from a family where, growing up in the 80s, early 80s, there was less work rules, correct? So, having a paper route when I was 11 and 12 years old, cleaning fish at 14 and 15 at a trout facility in the desert for $2.90 an hour, leaving home when I was 16 going on 17 and never returning, correct? I think we had a lot of different drivers that drove us. So I think you always had to dream. You have to dream, but then you have to put the hard work in after the dream. The dream just gets you through the day, correct? Like I'm coming in, I'm working on a couple director positions right now. And I still work a desk every day as a CEO. All right. And last week, we found this perfect candidate. I'm excited. I'm already dreaming. I'm dreaming now. I'm like, this is the candidate. This is, $45,000, whatever it's going to be. The next morning, you get the dreaded text. I've decided to back out of the interview. And I'm like, all of a sudden, brakes come on, dream goes out the window. At least I slept well, correct? At least I said, wow, I had a great night's sleep. I know that we wrapped this up in 2 days, from finding the candidate, presenting the candidate, getting a Teams interview for the candidate, and then all of a sudden you get slapped in the face or punched in the gut, however you want to look at it in this business. It is relentless sometimes dealing with these type of things. But what do you have to do? You have to just move past it and move forward, correct? Yeah, move past and move forward. And thank the candidate, for God's sakes, I think every majority of candidates who I work with, they'll say that I'm going to try. I tried to save this candidate. I tried to make this work, and it wasn't going to work. And there's a point where you have to throw in the towel. Okay? And move forward. And congratulate the candidate on his decision or her decision, and just move forward.
We talked about this in the pregame. You just had a streak of 10 presentations that turned into 10 placements. And one of the things that you've told me is like, with your years of experience and all the years you've been working in, we're going to talk about the customer relationships in a bit, because 30-year clients is unheard of. But I want to focus on this. You said your zone of genius is identifying the right candidates for your customers. What are you seeing in these candidates that other people are missing? And what are you seeing in these candidates that these companies just keep on coming back to you year after year after year?
Okay, so I would say that when I'm looking at in the old days, we'd look at a piece of paper, correct? We'd have a resume in our hand, we could hold on to it. It took me a while, I think, in 2014 plus, where everything is on a computer. We stopped printing and holding these resumes. I sort of look at a resume as a photograph, picture, and things come out at me very, very fast. I look at tenure. I look at qualifications. I look at who they are. We know if you are recruiting for a director of, well, let's say an operations manager, okay, a director of operations, whatever it might be. We know if they're working for a competitor and they have 8+ years working for a competitor, we already know that person's qualified for the position, correct? We know the person is qualified. Will they match all the boxes? Have they moved before? Just this morning, I'm looking at a resume. A gentleman went from Colorado, North Carolina, New York from 2000 to present. Okay? I have a West Coast opportunity. I typically won't call a Boston person for a Los Angeles position. I won't call a Miami person for a Seattle position. Okay? But if I see movement in resumes, then I start going, okay, they're open to relocation with a possibility. So this streak I was on was the end of last year. 10 placements, 10 presentations, 10 deals, correct? The first person that we present gets the position. I warn our clients lots of times too, Benjamin. I warn them, I say, hey, if I present the first person, don't be surprised that they're not the one. I try to prep our clients for this. I really don't want to send over candidates that don't match. Yeah, we have recruiting tactics we can all talk about. You dive deeper into recruiting tactics. You want to hold on to a job longer. You can get a candidate in there, maybe as a blocker candidate, I called it, or something like that. As long as that there is a way for that candidate to get hired, but you're really not 100% behind this candidate. Okay. You have to have other horses in the race or whatever it might be. But I'd much rather find the best candidate for the first presentation. I think that works very well.
So I'm sure a lot of that requires a good intake call. Walk me through your intake, and can you give me for the listeners, can you give me 3 good questions that help shape your entire search that you asked during the intake?
Intake calls, a lot of my, I love intake calls always when we get a chance. A lot of the clients I've been recruiting for so many years, they can literally say, we have a job we're working right now in Monterrey, Mexico. Okay. And this is director of operations for a multinational industrial minerals company. Okay. And they can say, David, I could have the VP of HR or the CHRO in this case call me and say, hey, find me this type of person. Okay. And I've recruited for so many years for this company. I already understand the recipe, correct? Everything's a recipe. I always get it's like a recipe. I understand their recipe. I understand about 8 of my clients that I've worked with for 20 years plus what the recipe is. So the intake call, yes, it's important with the hiring manager. But remember, I grew up in recruiting more married to human resources than I was married to hiring managers, okay, in business. What I mean is the majority of still the jobs we work, we're dealing with human resources. Whether we like it or not, we're dealing with human resources. We do ask permission when the job starts going sideways. If we didn't have a correct intake call, let's get the hiring manager on there and let's talk about it. 3 questions. Okay. How long has this job been open? These are obvious. How long has it been open? And how many candidates have you interviewed before showing up to us? Okay. Okay. If they say, I'm too busy to interview, you're it. Okay. Wow. Wind at our back, correct? If they say 15 candidates and we haven't found the right one, you need to downshift into, 4-wheel drive and get through the mud and figure out exactly what they're looking for. Asking a hiring manager, what is the perfect fit for you, can be the most obvious question, correct? We know if it's a mechanical engineer, a chemical engineer, electrical engineer. We know if it's an accounting position. We know if you find a CPA candidate or if you find an audit candidate, whether engineering, accounting, it's all the same recipe, correct? All right. We know what they're looking for, but really on the personality side, what are you looking for? What makes this the best fit?
You said something to me that really just stood out. What's the year frame of your longest client?
I know that when I get my dates mixed up as I get older. My kids laugh at me sometimes. I say I've been in this business more than 30 years. Well, they really can't. I'm 58. I got out of the Coast Guard when, 27, whatever, But my longest client, I was filling temporary deals for when I first started when I was 28. Yeah. So I'm 58 now. I probably have filled hundreds of positions with this company. In fact, just today we have everything from director openings down to temporary openings with this company. Okay. And I've navigated through different VP of HRs. I've navigated through different HR managers. I navigated through different hiring managers. And I've lost some of these companies for a 2 to 3 year stretch sometimes. Okay. But I always tell young recruiters, I tell everybody like with a bullhorn, what is my key to success? It is patience. You have to be patient. When a new director of HR comes in or a new person comes into an organization and they say, we are now working with this other firm. It's like somebody just gave you a slap across the face, And you're like, oh my God, I've just lost this company. I've lost some of my companies 3 or 4 times. But guess what? You just go look at their LinkedIn profile, okay? You look at their LinkedIn profile, you see every 3 years they switch jobs. I always say people that jump a lot, they do really great in interviews, correct? You have to be really good at interview when you have job. And there's a way that they can move up to different levels very quicker that way too. There's all sorts of, you see different things. But in this case, you're going to outlive their tenure at the company. And if you outlive the tenure at their company, you're back in. That's it. Patience. Yeah. And delivering candidates too. You just can't expect they're going to, hey, I want to work with Fishman because he delivers terrible candidates. I work with Fishman because his team, Sparrow Company, tries to give us the best possible talent.
So you said something important, patience. Here's a question for you. For these companies, what did you do in your 30s that has paid off now in your 50s?
Wow, I could tell you that right away. And I think our younger recruiters are probably guilty of doing something that I used to do. I'm guilty of doing something that I used to do. Okay. I learned from mainly my older brother that relationships were everything. Okay. We would, in the older days, people liked to go out to dinner. They liked to go out to see a baseball game. They liked to go and hang out. It seems like now that ever since COVID, people really like to be home. They'd rather be home. They're more homebody-ish, So if I say, hey, I'm flying into Dallas, let's have dinner. They'll be like, great. I'm glad you're flying to Dallas. If you want to come by the office for a half hour, that's great, but I really don't have time for dinner. I got to know a lot of people and I know them really well. And I started working with HR professionals. All right. And these HR professionals, when I started working with them, were HR coordinators, HR generalists, HR manager, director of HR, VP of HR. I don't know I know so many VPs of HR now that I've been working with for 25 plus years. Okay. When I started working with them when they were younger, I encourage our recruiters to get to know their client. Okay. They are in the Great Recession of 2009. It was like a diaspora of HR managers having to leave the client I was doing and landing at this company and landing at that company. And I had the ability to call them up and say, hey, so-and-so, I see you started here. It wasn't like I had to market them again. I had their cell phone, correct? And staying in touch with them, offering career advice. How many times do I talk to people I've placed or people that I work with who are now at the VP level who are going to make a change? And they say, David, can we have a half-hour conversation? Can we talk? Because I'm really nervous about what's happening in our current company, that type of thing. As a recruiter, you learn a lot about people, correct? And you learn a lot about what companies want and how to deliver that. And you also learn about friendships too. I think of them more as a friend than they think of me as a friend. You see my point? Yeah, because I'm sort of was raised very loyal to who I work with.
You mentioned 2009. You mentioned people going everywhere. What happened to your business in 2009?
Well, in 2009, I was still working with my brother's company at the time. So he sold the business. He restarted in 2001. We opened up a recruiting firm. By that time, I was doing direct placement mainly. And it was around 2001, 2002. And I was building a book of business. I was mainly running the recruiting side. He was the CEO, but also running mainly on the temp side. Okay. In 2008, I started seeing a really bad trend where my current clients were not picking up the phone and calling me. We're seeing layoffs. I remember, I think it was September 2008. I also placing a lot of HR managers helped my career too, because you get to know HR people, you start placing HR people. My last placement was September 2008. Okay. We went from about 12 recruiters down to only a couple of recruiters. And at that time, I wasn't a partner with this company, even though there was family involved. And talk about like not having a degree and all that stuff. I had expenses. I'm living in Southern California. Okay. I have children. I have this and that. I have to eat. Okay. And that's when I created Sparrow Company. I created Sparrow Company in 2009. And it was either that or potentially go broke. And I work every day realizing this is a for-profit business. Okay. And I had to make my own deals at that point. And that's what I did in 2009. Then I was cast into having non-competes at that time and having to go farm my own business. And nobody was hiring anyways at that time. It was completely, shut down. So you have to get creative, correct? Luckily enough, I was able to hold on to and get new clients. In the beginning, I had to go to new clients and then build from there. To I talk about 2014 a lot as being a liberating year for me. That's where I was above the clouds again. And I felt like I was in control of our business, of what we do. It's a good feeling. I'll tell you right now, 2026, I have some of the same worries I had as a younger recruiter. Okay. The winds of change are blowing right now. People have to wake up and realize you have to recreate yourself a lot in this business. We have patience. You need patience, but you also have to learn how to recreate yourself regularly, because if we do the same old tricks over and over again and we keep chasing our tail, it doesn't deliver dollars, correct? And if you go 3 to 4 months in there with a bad streak, you better wake up and realize you're doing something wrong. I don't care how much experience you have. You have to hire young people as well to bring creative, fresh ideas in to your business. And you have to have older, wiser people, correct, as well, too, who have been through, who have been beat up time and time again and are able to come back. Those people, combined with a young workforce, well, people always say, the younger generation, they don't do this. No, the younger generation is probably as bright as they've ever been, in my opinion.
So I want to go back to 2009, 2010, because I personally feel like it's not the same as the COVID downturn, because as soon as the COVID downturn got done downturning, it shot up like
a rocket ship, correct? It just went right up to some of the biggest dollars we've ever seen in recruiting.
It turned into the golden era of recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy.
But 2009, 2010, it didn't do that. Those years, between those years before, like, you felt like things were great in 2014. What did those years teach you about being a top biller that you still to this day use?
This could be a good self-reflection right here too, correct? Because maybe I don't use those same tactics anymore. Number one, you had to be a trusted advisor, consultant to the people you work with, okay? If you try to open a business up with no recruiting experience in 2009 and 2010, it could have been some of the toughest times you've ever been through. And there was no LinkedIn back then. There was plenty of marketing ideas, though, correct? You had a subscription to CareerBuilder or Monster.com. All these things that want to kill recruiters help recruiters, I always say. Everything that was out there, this isn't to kill recruiting, but just gave us more information, okay? So consistently staying in touch with people, all right? Number one. Number two, being a trusted advisor, even though you're in your 30s. I was in my 30s at the time. It was still like, I have to be, or 40s, I have to be a trusted advisor, okay? Number three, patience, once again. You have to be patient. Things will turn. Just give them time, okay? And also staying in line with your clients. I read about our clients all the time. I don't enjoy anything better than picking up a publication at the airport. I don't read like I used to, a Fortune magazine or Harvard Business Review or whatever it might be, and seeing your clients in these magazines, you know, where they're talking about them. Knowing what's happening with their stock, knowing what's happening with their revenue, and seeing trends in the market. But getting back to it, all this sounds good, but really it's just putting your head down and work in 2009, correct? You had to face rejection on a daily basis. If you can't face rejection, you're never going to be the best recruiter, okay? If you can't identify talent, you're going to have a hard time too, all right? I can get any recruiter up to speed in a short amount of time of what to look for in a resume to tell you that's the right person. And now we have a couple recruiters on our staff who are always trying to go for that first place presentation, but some companies want 3 to 5 candidates, okay? And we have to deliver So really knowing what your customer wants, but putting your head down and work. That's 2009. The fear of failure every single day of 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. The fear of failure, that chases me to this day. Last night, I'm thinking, not even about this podcast, I'm thinking, wow, I've been knocked in the teeth a few times this month. I had a meeting with some people, with a group of recruiters yesterday, and I'm like, wow, this has been tough. It's been tough. And what's going to happen with that? I don't know, but I have to recreate. I got to put my head down and work.
You talked about recreating. You talked about putting your head down and working. Like before we actually hit the record button, you said that last year you would focus on the numbers, the billing numbers. This year you switched it to production focus. Why did you do that switch?
For my first 20 years in recruiting, I never cared about how much I billed. I just woke up the other day, and we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, our team, and I realized I don't know how many deals I closed last year. Okay. As a single recruiter, just me working a desk, I would try for 30 deals a year. Okay. So those deals could be either 25,000, they could be 18,000. If you're 30 deals at 20, that's 600,000 in billing, correct? If we do 50 deals at 20,000 average fee, we're at $1 million. Okay. So I always looked at myself as a production recruiter. Okay. I am not a retained recruiting person. And we can debate till we're blue in the face what's better, retained. I think in this year, retained would be far more comfortable than what I put myself through. But I learned in the early day, well, let's talk about being competitive too, correct? You have to be competitive. I want to be a production recruiter. I want to close 50 deals this year, and we're at 13, okay? And I want to keep focused on the number of deals, because if you're closing the deals, the money will follow, correct? All right? You can have last year, the first 6 months, we did 600,000 or something, okay? And we're all focused on the dollars, and we lose sight of the deals in, correct? If you're focused on 600,000 in June, you might get a little bit lazy, correct? Hey, we did 600,000. We're so great. Wow, look how wonderful we are. And then all of a sudden we wake up and it's the dog days of summer and people are going on vacations. Vice presidents are gone. They can't sign up on things. It has to wait till September. October, there's these waves in recruiting you have to catch. And if you miss the October wave, you are screwed. You got to make some money in October to push you to the next wave of January. Then you got to hop on that wave again to get you to April through May to June. Okay? And these waves are always building in our business. And if you can't cite that wave, then you have a problem. Okay? If you just look at we did 600, we're terrific. We're all patting ourselves on the back. Well, guess what? We woke up and we got punched in the face in September, October. It's the same trap we fall into since I started this looking at dollars. I'm going to look at deals. I want 50 deals at 20,000. That's $1 million. And I want 100 temporary employees. Okay. If I do the 100 temporary employees plus, 50 deals, our team is doing pretty good.
Talking about temp, like in 2023, you launched a temp side. Like, first of all, let's talk about that. But what spurred the idea of going, like, you're doing great contingent, you're doing great with your search firm, you're doing great with the exec search. I start a temp business also.
That's partly why we're here in El Paso. And actually, I have a business partner on the temporary side who's terrific. His name is Manny Grotto. And I met him by stalking him on LinkedIn. When I came to El Paso, it was twofold. Remember, we're a U.S.-Mexico business. I think it says it somewhere back here. We have recruiters in the United States and we have recruiters in Mexico. I had an office in Tijuana for years. I'm driving back and forth from LA, Orange County to Tijuana. It's always traffic going down to San, unless you leave 11 at night. It's always traffic. I started going to trade shows. My trade shows are big in our business too. If you're not going to trade shows for what you recruit in, okay, you're losing money, okay, for sure. But they had trade shows on here on Mexico manufacturing in El Paso all the time. And so I would fly on an airplane. I'd say I get to El Paso. It's like the desert where I grew up. It's sort of exciting being on the border of such of one region, correct? You know, I mean, you have Juarez and you have El Paso. And El Paso and Juarez are like one city. So it really fit well for our USA-Mexico business. All right. On the temporary side, I started on a temp desk. I have a love for temporary work. And I always we've always had like 10 to 15 people of our clients, our close clients on our payroll. Okay. So we regularly, if they have a track accounting position, they have a logistics coordinator position, whatever. We always have like 10 to 15 people. So I wanted to have a home base. Remember in 2009, when I went on my own in Los Angeles, from 2009 to 2023, I had no office building. We were pioneers in virtual. All right. I never had a Teams meeting up until COVID, I don't think. Okay. Yeah, it's so weird. We talk every day now on Teams, but I think it's better not to. I always say it's better that I don't talk to candidates and see them. I'd rather just, because then I start getting judgmental, correct? Just by natural. Yeah, I don't want to be judgmental of people. I'd rather not see people. But anyway, so getting back to the temporary business, I found one of the top salesmen in El Paso, and I invited him out to breakfast, invite him out to lunch, whatever. And finally I say, hey, why don't you become a business partner? He's at the top of his game. Okay. And why would he, if he's making this much, doing very well for a national staffing company, why would he come and join Sparrow Company? Okay. Just on a whim. So I said, hey, let's do a partnership. For years, I tried to expand and my head would explode, correct? Because you can only do so much. And you're like, oh, you're trying to run temp jobs. You're trying to run direct jobs. You're trying to run Mexico, where we have deals. And by the way, we are not a niche firm. We just recruited an HR manager for Monterrey, Mexico. It starts next week. We have an electrical engineer for Guadalajara that we're working. We have a project manager over in Saltillo. Okay. On the U.S. side, we have completely different, of everything from accounting managers, director of operations, or a person working as a temporary in a rock quarry on the east side of El Paso. So, I mean, there's a lot of, and by the way, our team all works together a lot. So literally we're working on, we do have people who are focused on temp, but last night we get an order for 10 people. What are we going to do? We're all going to start pitching in to get these jobs filled. Number of deals. Let's fill those deals, correct? Who cares about fill the deals? The money will follow. The money will just flow your direction. I believe that.
How did you actually convince Manny to jump in? Like, we talked about partnership, but like, walk me through the conversation.
Yeah. I think he saw that I dream. Okay. That, dreamers are great sometimes. Candidate dreamers are terrible sometimes. I always say, like, make sure they're not dreaming before we present them to a job in Los Angeles and they haven't even told their spouse about their interviewing for a job in Los Angeles. I always say, make sure. My wife, Maria, I just presume she's going to follow. We just moved to El Paso. She's like, no, my dream is Los Angeles, living in Orange County. And this, so really check out your dreams before you, vet those dreams before, because you got to be careful with dreamers, correct? Or this type of thing. In this case, I thought he could see that I was willing to put the hard work in to making this work. Okay. And I told him I still work a desk. I am not a self-removed owner. I know what's going on in business. Since coming to El Paso, he can see my commitment to many of local organizations that we do work with, in charitable organizations, with the hospitals, with different nonprofits that we work with, and I believe in donating when times are good to nonprofits of local. Like in El Paso, or in some other cases, I'm on the board of directors for the Haiti Reforestation Partnership, where we replant trees in Haiti, and we planted 16 million so far since our organization has been there. Okay, So I believe in putting your money where your mouth is type of situation. I think Manny saw that. Okay. And I think he understood that I wasn't going to be just living in, though he might disagree. I've taken golf the last couple of years and I really love to golf, and he's, what's he doing? Is he golfing again? Is this guy golfing again? But besides that, I'm on an airplane every 2 weeks to El Paso. And he saw that my son, Noah, he works with the company. I have another recruiter, Britley, who's my daughter, who's our top biller right now. For once, somebody's kicking my rear end and I hate it, but it is family. That said, we have this is not a family business. This is a business, correct? And people perform. So I think he could see that I was all in on what I do. You have to be all in. And maybe one day you can talk to Manny. He's an incredible on the temporary side. He is just, it's this constant business development, staying in touch, correct? Being involved with I'm on the board of directors for the El Paso Chamber. He's the ambassador, one of the vice president of ambassadors for El Paso Chamber. So every ribbon cutting, he's there at it. It's dedicating yourself to the community. When it comes to temp, you got to dedicate yourself to the community. And I think he saw that dedication.
What has it been, because you're active with a desk, you're active with a team. What has been one of the hardest parts about building something bigger than your own production?
Hiring recruiters. I fell at hiring recruiters. What I'm good at is finding people to support my desk. I always say that my desk is good for 1.5 million regularly. Okay. No, plus 300,000, 400,000 in Mexico a year. And being guilty of what we spoke about, not getting our team out, meeting these other young people who are where you're planting seeds for the future. Because every placement you make could be a future placement, correct? And really realizing how the tree grows and how it takes water. We talk about Haiti and reforest, it's about planting seeds all the time. And so I think when we lose sight of planting seeds is probably where we need to get back to the basics. Always get back to the basics, So I think that would be some of it.
You mentioned that both your son and daughter work in the business, right?
Yes.
That means that the dream has been big enough. The vision has been big enough for years for them to join in with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the fact that when I'm here in El Paso, I get to stay at a house where my son lives. He's 26 now. My daughter's 36. I have 3 other children, so I had 5 total. And there's another one that's been related. She's related to the accounting department. My sister has done accounting for us for years. When I first came to El Paso, I said to everybody, if you want to move to El Paso, I'll visit you. She was living in Atlanta when our mother passed away. And I said, I probably will never visit you in Atlanta. But if you want to move to El Paso, I'll be in El Paso. And right then COVID happened. It's like, you're never coming to El Paso. You'll never see this and that. And my son was working for a very good client of ours in doing the windmill towers, a wind generation business. And he was climbing those towers and he was doing repair on the blades, 300 feet in the air, being strapped in. And I told him, probably my son had to work harder than everybody. I said, you need to go be on your own for 2 to 3, 4 years. And he worked a manufacturing job. Then he got hired on. People go, oh, well, it was a client of yours. Well, he had to go through the process and he proved himself. And after a couple of these wild times where he's swinging up in the air, 300 feet in the air, I said, maybe it's time you come join the business. He works a temporary desk. He works for Manny. He doesn't work directly for me. And they are constantly going out to clients and getting to know their business. And so there's a lot of joy. My oldest daughter, who's a recruiter in this business, just does a wonderful job. And I'm so proud of her. But she will also tell you nothing is really given to her. She has to perform like everybody else has to perform. But she does a good job. And last year, I was a top biller. This year, she's definitely, it's going to be hard to catch up to her. Yeah.
I love that your dream was big enough that they wanted to be part of it and they're help forming their dream. But do you ever think in the back of your head, like about legacy?
I do. And also without past the family members, we have our general manager who lives in Tijuana, Eduardo, who's been with our company since 2014. We have Marion Villar in Monterrey, Mexico, who's been with us for over 7 years. We have Samaritana in Monterrey, who's been with us for over 7 years. We have Lila in Saltillo, who's been with us for over 3.5 years now. We have Zaida, our operations coordinator, who lives over in Juarez, who's going up on 3 years. We have incredibly tenured people. One of our top recruiters was an HR manager for a customer of mine, and he lives in Ohio, and he just celebrated his 8th year anniversary with our company. Okay. So we have an extremely strong, tenured team who has been through ups and downs and have to hear me bitch and complain when things are bad and have me happy as hell when things are good. So legacy, yes. I don't just think about family. I think about the team. I really do. And how much each one of these people mean to me and how they've really changed my life in so many ways. And also have taken a risk like Manny had took as well.
By chance, did you ever see the Broadway play Hamilton?
No, it's always been my bucket list, but.
So there's one of the songs or one of the parts of the play. I think it's Eliza sitting there talking about Alexander Hamilton, like writing constantly, like he's running out of time. Huh. He's running out of time. He's running out of time. He's writing like he's running out of time. During our pregame, you mentioned that you felt like you were running out of time, but you still have so many years left. Like, what is spurring that internal feeling of time is running out?
Boy, I forgot we spoke about that. I believe that something is chasing me on a daily basis. I felt that way when I was 32. 30, not 32, but 30 also. I think that's what drives me in business is like I feel like time is running out. And it only accelerates as you get older. I know they say 58's the new 48. I know people tell me, oh, you don't look 58. But when you start having people you went to high school with on a regular basis, like they're gone, all right? My wife probably hates this conversation more. Like I'm preparing for like the ending, you know, in a weird way. And I want to continue. I feel like something's chasing me. Absolutely, 100%. I think that's part of being a good recruiter. Because when I've got knocked in the teeth over the last couple months, I've lost deals and I've just been second place. I hate being second place. I always question myself, is that me? Am I really? Is that me getting slower? Is that me not being as good as I used to be? Correct? Is that me too stuck in my ways, even though I profess to everybody you have to change with the times? Those are the things that haunt me on a regular basis. Okay. And yes, I do feel like I'm running out of time, but I know that there's more time in front of me. And I still dream to have a multi-office operation on the temporary side. I have accepted the fact that on the direct placement side, when we hit $2 million, I'm happy. Okay. But I realize legacy-wise, sellability-wise, it's the temp side also. It's a combination of both, correct? It is a combination of both. And I can guarantee you my dream on the temporary side is to have the I-10 freeway going from California to San Antonio and having an office in Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, San Antonio, and being dedicated and having our corporate office stay in the city I love of El Paso, because I love this city and I love being here and I love the sense of community. And I love they've opened their arms to us and we've opened their arms to them as well. And so being dedicated to this community and bringing something to and when I talk about sellability, I'm not saying I just want to make big to sell, But once you get to that level of temp where you have 300, 500, 1,000 people, I talk about being above the clouds in 2014. I feel like then I'll be above the clouds on the temporary business side.
If there's a recruiter listening to this conversation with you, David, they're in their late 20s, they're in their early 30s. You feel like you're running out of time now and you've been in this game for a while. What would you tell that recruiter that feels like they have so much time in front of them?
I would tell them that anybody, I tell this to my children. I think I talked to my son about it last night. I mean, they probably get tired of me talking. By the way, I talk a lot. I think recruiters get paid to talk. You have to be conversational. If you're going to be good, you have to be a conversationalist, correct? You really have to create. I tell people I create conversations for a living. Okay, you have to jump on stage. Here I am, David Fishman, recruiter, 58 years old, 30 years of business, whatever it might be. But getting back to a young person, I used to think that when I was 29, 30, when I was 35, I would be old. Then I thought, and I woke up and I realized I am in the best ever age there is for work and professionalism and matching people. Okay. I started in the days where you could still see somebody in the 1960s, 70s, Vietnam era, they could still place. And now my resume says, from 86 to present. You get my point? Now I'm the one where they're judging their resumes on the dates. I don't care what people say. People look at tenure. They look at these type of things. It's just natural that we do that. I would say when they get to their 40s, it's only just begun. Okay. The 40s were very liberating to me in so many ways because I realized that I'm still young in the 40s. Okay. Then here comes the 50s. And then you go into a board of directors meeting, or you're working with a private equity firm and you're working directly with the CEO and they're 55 years old and you're 55 years old. Of course, you get these young people that come up and they're 42 and they're CEO and this and that. We're talking real life though, Benjamin. Real life. The 50 to 60-year-old crowd are at the board of directors table. You realize so many doors have opened up to you now when you're in the. So I would say that to a person in 20s, you have the longest runway you can imagine. You can mess up still. You can change your career. You can, if you want to be a doctor at 35, you can still become a doctor. And if you got it by the time you're 45 or 50, you still have 20 years of being a doctor, making buku, whatever, and enjoying your life. So realize that when you're in your upper 20s, you have room for mistakes and you have room to change. And if you work hard and you love what you do, then you'll be successful. And if you dream. So dreaming, working hard, and also monitoring your results. Yeah. You have to monitor your results.
You've been part of the Pinnacle Society for a while now.
Yeah.
What does the Pinnacle Society mean to you?
Wow. It is a organization that, well, I tell you, when I first got in, I had a chip on my shoulder. I still have a chip on my shoulder sometimes with degrees and no degrees and this and that. And, I don't usually get jealous of other recruiters, but I do sit at a table with these people at the next conference, or if I think I'll be there, but if I'm not, but whenever we have a conference and I'm there, and I go, I'm David Fishman. I billed 1.2 million this year, whatever it is. And then you have a young 35-year-old kid. I can think of some names. I won't name them, but they're just so freaking good at what they do. And I remember being 35 saying, how does this guy do $3 million a year? And now I see these 35, we're talking about 35, 40, 45, 50, and they're kicking my ass. Okay. In terms of, we don't look at it that way in the meetings. I just talk about myself in my mind. I'm like, how does he do that? That's amazing. Correct. So really being around all these professionals that bill so much money is wow. Correct. Yeah. So I look at it more like, and now I've been in it so long that I have we don't see each other outside of our conferences much. But boy, when you see, I can name 10 people right now. When I see them, I will give them a big hug. I missed them. And I've learned so much from these people about recruiting and recruiting tactics, and realizing we all come from different walks of life. We all would, but at the end of the day, we have vision, we have drive, we look at our results, and we see where we are, and we have the ability to change on a dime, okay? Because when you're going down a wrong path in recruiting, and you don't have the ability to stop, turn around, go back the other direction, and go find another mine with gold or silver in it, then so the ability to change with these people is just wow. And they're terrific people.
This is going to be my last question. And, because you are part of the Pinnacle Society, you get a chance to talk to a lot of recruiters. And I'm sure recruiters hit you up like, what's working BD wise? Like, how did you build your company? How did you build your desk? I'm sure you get tons of questions, even from the recruiters on your team. In all the questions that you have gotten over the years, is there a question that you wish somebody would ask you, but nobody ever does? And what would be that answer?
That's a really good one. What does it really take to become a recruiter? What does it really take to become a recruiter? That's probably the most important question, correct? If you think this is an 8 to 5 job, you better run. You better go another. If you think that these deals happen by accident, you better go. Yeah, we have good economies where things match up so perfect and the deal comes together and you think you're like the top recruiter, you're placing the first candidate. And then you wake up in 2020, end of 2025, 2026, and you see the winds are changing and you think you can get away with 8 to 5, you're wrong. If you think that this like magically happens, no deal is an accident, okay? No deal is an accident. No deal that falls apart is an accident either. It was meant to fall apart because it wasn't the correct fit, all right? And if you think you know better than your clients who are actually paying you, then that's another thing too. So what does it take to become a recruiter? Because it takes a lot. It takes a lot, and it takes everything from what we talked about, from dreaming, once again, dreaming, putting your head down, doing the work, looking at the results. That's it. If you can do that, you could be a recruiter. I'll end it. I've said this before on other things, but my older brother taught me something very powerful when I first started. He said, in recruiting or in staffing, he said under staffing. In staffing, you only have to work half a day. That's it. Just work half a day and you'll be fine. But he said, always remember to choose which 12 hours you want to work. Okay? And I believe that. And I know when I get comfortable and I start doing less hours, I can tell my billing will go down. It really does take sending sitting out of the candidate list on a Saturday afternoon. And last but not least, I tell this to every recruiter, you have to come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, work as hard and get as many submittals as possible. If you work those first 3 days a week, Thursday, Friday will bleed into the following week, correct? The minute you get too complacent on a Monday or Tuesday, you're not going to have enough momentum to get to the following Monday. So that's it.
David, this has been an amazing interview. If somebody wants to follow you or connect with you, how do they go about doing that?
You can Sparrow Company on David Fishman on LinkedIn, of course. David Fishman Sparrow Company. I also have Sparrow Company LLC on Instagram and Facebook. And I've been starting to drop some videos recently. I'm going to increase that too. As I get older, you talk about things chasing me down and those type of things. I do want to spread the word about recruiting, correct? I'm an evangelist when it comes to recruiting. I love what we do. I think it's the best job I could have ever had. And I'm so happy I fell into it. And I'm very thankful to the ones that helped show me the way. So they can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, Sparrow Company. and also on LinkedIn.
Well, David, I just want to say thank you. One of the things that you so often do not see in our space is somebody that's been in the game this long, but still excited every single day. But I know why you're excited is because of the impact that this career, this business, this desk has had on you.
Yeah, it's had a huge influence, and I look at it as my desk. I still say my desk. This is my desk, and it's been a good ride, and hopefully I'll keep outrunning the thing chasing me down, whatever that might be. But thank you so much, Benjamin. I've watched this for a long time, and I'm like, wow, I'm here, and this is one of the pinnacles of my career. So thank you, Benjamin.
I'm excited that I cannot wait for this to go live. And for you listening, 2026, it is your year. Put the work down, put your head down, make it happen.